Hi guys, today I want to discuss my further research on Bob Lazar's flying saucer, specifically on the emitters and how they are essential to the UFO's unique movements. In the previous video, I presented my hypothesis that the saucer was not powered by anti-gravity but electromagnetic forces, which can also generate a strong field to propel, bend light, and deflect incoming objects. The saucer's reactor creates energy to power up the craft, though the craft seems to function mainly through its three emitters. They were the ones with coronal discharge of deionized air during flying. Their turning angles or positions would activate the reactor and possibly create different propulsion directions and forces. Thus, the emitters are crucial components of the flying saucer's propulsion system. Some people think Lazar's story is a hoax. However, assuming it's pure science fiction, it's still interesting to brainstorm ideas and possibilities surrounding this story. After all, these saucer-shaped crafts or UFOs, which are often seen with intense lights or coronal discharges, have been recorded and filmed by many people, including the militaries from various countries over a long period of time. UFO is no longer a conspiracy theory, but a legit phenomenon, which deserves serious academic research. So, please maintain an open mind and let's see if we can learn something by analyzing Bob's story. Before I start with my new findings, I want to briefly answer two frequently asked questions about my last video. The first one is about G-force. UFOs are reported to travel at enormous speeds and make sudden changes in direction during flight. The G-forces on these crafts would crush whoever inside them to powder. But why didn't the pilots of these flying saucers get harmed by the G-forces? Here's what I think. There appears to be neither a bathroom nor food storage on the craft, which is essential for biological astronauts. That possibly implies that the saucer described by Bob Lazar was not designed for biological beings to do long-distance interplanetary traveling. Perhaps the three small seats that Bob mentioned were meant for AI type of robots to recharge themselves near the reactor. Indeed, we are sending robots to investigate Mars. It makes sense to assign dangerous and unpredictable tasks to robots, because biological astronauts are extremely valuable and irreplaceable. Plus, they are physically vulnerable compared to robots. Sending AI out to another planet to collect data would be a practical and smart choice. Hence, the UFO's unthinkable acceleration speeds and sharp turns that would crush humans would not harm AI travelers. The second question is whether electromagnetic forces can be as powerful as gravity or anti-gravity to maneuver flying saucers. We tend to think of gravity as very strong, since it's what binds us to the Earth. But actually, gravity is the weakest among the four fundamental forces of nature, which also includes electromagnetism, strong nuclear force, and a weak nuclear force. Think of it this way. How hard is it to lift a ball off the ground? Or to lift your foot? Or to jump? All of those actions are countering the gravity of the entire Earth. On the other hand, electromagnetism is much stronger than the gravitational force. In fact, it's a staggering 10 to the power 40 times stronger than gravity. That's a 1 with 40 zeros after it. When we use an ordinary bar magnet to pick up paper clips, the tiny magnet won the battle against the gravitational pull of all of Earth. Furthermore, scientists have found that electromagnetic energy does contribute to space-time curvature, just like any other form of energy such as mass. So similar to gravity, electromagnetic fields can also bend light and warp the fabric of space-time. It means the unusual phenomenon which convinced Bob and Barry that the flying saucer created an anti-gravity field might be the result of an electromagnetic force. Okay, now let's start with my hypothesis on Bob Lazar's flying saucer. Per his descriptions, I propose that instead of anti-gravity, the craft might function with electromagnetic propulsion, powered by a compact nuclear fission reactor that doubles as an atomic battery. The particle accelerator inside the reactor can be activated wirelessly through electromagnetism by moving an emitter closer to the reactor. Similar to two magnets or two Tesla coils can react with each other without touching or the need of a wire connection. After the reactor was turned on, it worked with the emitter to generate a strong field that can propel an incoming golf ball. The reactor is the power source of the craft's propulsion system. The three emitters are placed at the points of an equilateral triangle, and they received electricity from the reactor. During the low-performance test that Bob witnessed, at the beginning he first heard, quote, a loud hiss, the kind of buzzing sound that an electrical substation might produce, unquote. The noise ended soon after. Then he saw a blue or bluish-purple glow of a corona discharge coming from the bottom of the craft as it lifted off. He suspected that means the air around there, where the emitters were, was being broken down due to that incredible high-energy output. When the saucer was hovering motionless in midair, Bob observed that only one emitter was creating the corona discharge, and it was the one facing straight down at the ground. The other two pointed at a right angle to the one with corona discharge. This demonstrates that one emitter can produce sufficient propulsion to suddenly lift the saucer in the air, and the three emitters can work separately or in unison for different flying maneuvers. The corona effect is an electrical discharge caused by the ionization of a fluid, such as air surrounding a conductor that is electrically charged. It's often seen as a bluish glow in the air, adjacent to pointed metal conductors like wires carrying high voltages. Corona discharge can cause an audible hissing or cracking noise as it ionizes the air. Therefore, the loud hiss and the bluish corona discharge coming from Bob's flying saucer when it lifted up were probably signs of a high voltage electric field generated by the reactor and emitter. I would like to remind you that electricity and magnetism are essentially two aspects of the same thing, or two sides of the same coin, because a changing electric field creates a magnetic field, and a changing magnetic field creates an electric field. Not by coincidence, high-voltage corona can be utilized in applications such as ion-propelled aircrafts, lifters, and other ionic wind devices. An ion-propelled aircraft, or ionocraft, is an aircraft that uses electrohydrodynamics, EHD, to provide lift or thrust in the air without requiring combustion or moving parts. EHD is the study of the interaction of electromagnetic fields and fluids. It's an emerging aerospace application that uses high voltage to ionize the air, propel ionized air molecules, and generate propulsion. Because there are no moving parts, ionocraft has a very low heat and noise profile, low maintenance need, and a long service life. EHD is also suggested to be more energy efficient than contemporary jet engines. The thrust-to-power ratio of EHD was reported to be as high as 110 Newton per kilowatts, as compared to a value of approximately 2 Newton per kilowatts for modern aircraft engines, which is a huge difference. Since the first airplane took flight over 100 years ago, virtually every aircraft in the sky has flown with the help of moving parts, such as propellers, turbine blades, or fans that produce persistent noise and heat. That's why it bewildered Bob and Barry when they found that the energy generator inside a flying saucer has no wires, no motor, and no moving parts. It was elegantly simple, yet highly efficient. Plus, it produces neither sound nor heat. These distinct differences indicate the saucer operates fundamentally different from our current aircrafts. The intriguing thing is, ionocraft, which use ionic winds as propulsion, share a few remarkable similarities with the otherworldly flying saucer. Ionocraft is energy efficient, has no motor or moving parts. It's quiet and generates no heat. Both the saucer and ionocraft can produce corona discharge and an audible hissing sound when they ionize the air around their conductors. For these reasons, understanding how ionocraft works might give us some clues on the mystery of the flying saucer. The ionic wind propulsion system works as follows. When enough voltage is passed between a thin and a thick electrode or conductor, the air in between the pair of conductors can produce enough thrust to propel a craft. The front conductors have sharp or pointed edges, such as thin wires. Behind each wire is a thick conductor, like an airfoil, blades, or plates. Those two conductors are separated by an air gap, usually centimeters or inches wide. When a high voltage of tens of kilowatts is applied between the two conductors, a strong electric field is induced only around the conductor with a sharp edge, where the air molecules get ionized and subsequently propelled towards the conductor of the opposite polarity. As the ionized molecules travel downwards, they drag neutral molecules with them, and this macro-scale air movement, referred as ionic wind, gives rises to the upward propulsion force on the craft. In 2018, using the same concept, MIT engineers have built and flown a small plane propelled via ionic wind with no moving parts. It weighs about 2.5 kilograms or 5 pounds and has a 5-meter wingspan. Utilizing a stack of batteries on board and an array of wires and airfoils, which are strung like horizontal fencing, along and beneath the front end of the plane's wing. The stack of batteries can supply electricity at 40,000 watts to possibly charge the wires. The team used a bungee cord to launch and fly the airplane a distance of 60 meters, almost 200 feet, which is the maximum distance within the gym. They found the plane produced enough ionic thrust to sustain its flight the entire time. The new design is considered a big step toward demonstrating the feasibility of ion wind propulsion. On the surface, this MIT airplane looks nothing like the flying saucer, and the horizontal fencing of wires and airfoils which can create ionic wind doesn't resemble the cylinder emitters. But imagine that we roll the fencing up. Then we'll have a cylinder with interior layers of wires and airfoils. That will be pretty close to the emitters described by Bob Lazar. He stated that the cylinder emitters have copper-looking plates on the side of the interior. The plate material was tested to be an alloy made of common elements, not otherworldly like the triangle fuel disk of element 115. Copper is unique in color. No metal on Earth has the same color, so the copper-colored plates inside the emitters are likely primarily made of copper, which is an excellent conductor and the top 30 most abundant element on Earth and in the universe. Thus, it's very likely that copper is a universally preferred material for conductors and electromagnets. There is unfortunately not much information on the copper plates or the interior structure of the UFO emitters. I wonder if the thickness of these plates may vary, which would work like the thin and thick conductors needed to generate ionic wind for propulsion. If this is the case, then it's reasonable to assume that Lazar's flying saucer was powered like an ionocraft in the atmosphere and possibly an ion thruster in space. Another obvious difference between the saucer and the earthly ionocrafts is that the saucer has 3 rotatable emitters, while our ion craft usually have only one ion engine. I think this has to do with different function purposes. Our airplanes, rockets, and spaceships are designed to do linear, 2D kinds of movements. Even though we have double propeller or 3-engine planes, these engines are basically working jointly to provide a 2D linear propulsion. In comparison, UFOs are famous for their unusual and baffling movements. They can move freely left and right, up and down in the air, or hover motionless, change directions during high-speed flying, and more. Perhaps this highly fluid 3D flying style was established by the 3 emitters. Each of the emitters is at the point of an equilateral triangle. Their openings are facing down at first and can rotate and swing in almost all angles. From the low-performance test Bob described, one emitter can generate enough propulsion to lift up the saucer, and with 3 of them working together, a much stronger field can be produced. When the emitters were turned on, They would create propulsion through ionic winds and emit corona discharges. When not all emitters are required, some can be rotated to be perpendicular with the saucer's axis, where they won't be activated by the electromagnetic field. The copper plates on the top interior of the emitters that are closer to the reactor can be wirelessly charged with high voltage. Then the thin and thick conductor wires were placed inside the emitters would develop ionic winds as propulsion. The propelling directions align with the cylinder emitter's axes. By controlling the position and angle of each emitter at the point of the equilateral triangle, the pilot can make very flexible and fluent movement created via the combined result of the three emitters' propulsion forces. So, it's conceivable that Bob's flying saucer might have utilized ionic propulsion, which is efficient, quiet, generates no heat, has no moving parts, and emits visible corona discharge. Ionocraft has the potential to be a new generation of aircraft that are mechanically simpler and do not release combustion emissions. Though there is a big obstacle. Since its invention in 1959, many researchers have been focused on demonstrating self-sustained liftoff, but none of those attempts has proven successful. This is largely due to the technical difficulty of developing a high-voltage power supply that is light enough to fly. Current designs do not produce sufficient thrust for manned flights or useful loads. However, with the successful experiment done by the MIT researchers, we might be at the doorstep of a new era of ion aircrafts and spaceships. If we can reverse engineer the small yet extremely powerful alien reactor, then that'll be a revolutionary achievement. Can you imagine the incredible opportunities such an accomplishment would provide humankind? Okay, that's all for today. If you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and share with others. You can also support me on Patreon, which is a monthly charge, kind of like you buying me a cup of coffee once a month. I appreciate your support. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.